There are two ways to be rich. One is by acquiring much, the other is by desiring little. Now, when we're thinking about simplicity and happiness, simplicity involves unburdening your life and living more lightly with fewer distractions that would interfere with a good life, as defined uniquely by each individual. That was a quote from Linda Breen Pierce. And today we're going to be talking about minimalism and a different way to achieving happiness as opposed to just having more and more things. So hello and welcome to the Growth Mindset podcast. In our modern hustle and bustle society, the always on culture, it just feels natural to overcommit to many things. It just keeps on happening without us realizing. Work priorities, side hustles, portfolio careers, self-improvement, all these things mean we can just pile up a bunch of responsibilities. And then there's your actual life to be getting on with, trying to be social, trying to have time for your family and your friends, and then your friends' problems and their kids' problems, and your failing love life, finding time for birthdays, weddings, and all of these people that you would have probably forgotten about if it wasn't for social media, but you somehow feel some responsibility to do something involved in their life that you really shouldn't. And then there is just social media and liking things, posting things, watching things mindlessly, trying to create things that perhaps enough people would want to also watch mindlessly, but they probably never will. You should also find some time to feed yourself, perhaps maybe feeding other people as well. And despite this and our lack of time, we somehow do manage to feed ourselves, often too much. And if we're really lucky, we might even find some more time to get to the headspace. And if we're really, really lucky, we might even find some more extra time to put towards making some headspace to then work out a way of feeding ourselves slightly less than we actually need to, so we might be the correct weight. This is odd, right? And I haven't really gotten to our hobbies or our creative pursuits or the important time needed to philosophize about the point or pointlessness of our existence. To be honest, that whole tangent there is giving me some anxiety and probably you as well. Doing too many things stresses us out. We never have enough time, so we just complain with a lot of the time that we do have about the time that we don't have. And it doesn't make any sense. And when we start different projects and do different things, we'll find that we won't be as successful as we like in them. And we find that we can't enjoy our time off. We'll find that we won't get as much sleep as we like. We'll find that we won't have as much health as we like. And generally, we are just going to end up complaining more. And as I've said, the series is generally about how to help us complain less and be happier. One really fantastic way to complain less is to do less, because when you're doing less, there'll be less things to go wrong, less things to fix, and less of the other things that you're doing will impact the things that you are doing, and you're more likely to actually do the things that you're doing correctly. When you do less stuff, you just have a clearer mind, and you're more aware of how you can make things work, and you're more aware of what your purpose is and what you're doing each day. And you just feel much less overwhelmed or overworked or stressed. And it makes the whole existence of being a human much simpler than trying to overcomplexify everything and fit everything in all at once. We really do need to learn how to slow down some more, which is hard when we just have so much demand for our attention and an expectation from society that we should be doing a side hustle and working on our self-improvement priorities and our relationships and being good parents or children. And it's just very overwhelming. And there is just a much more simpler strategy that is more fulfilling than trying to do everything. When you have less things, it's much easier to live. You have less things breaking, less things that need insurance, less things that need being claimed. You don't need to pack as much stuff whenever you go somewhere if you're moving flat or house. So having less stuff is just nicer. So minimalism, or like semi-minimalism, can just make you much happier because you just have so many less problems to deal with on a day-to-day basis. You have less things to complain about, and you have more time for yourself to do the few things that you care about when you've actually worked out what they are. This is something that if you've ever traveled for a while, any person that ever goes on a very long hike or goes traveling around the world with a backpack will experience the feeling of having too much stuff and realizing after a few weeks, they just need to send half of it home because they're not using most of it. And it's just really bloody heavy. The less stuff you have when you travel, the better. Because every day when you get to a new place, you have less stuff to unpack, less stuff that's in the way of the things that you do need to get to. And it takes a lot less time to then pack it all back up when you're going somewhere else. And you don't have to carry the whole stuff, which is just cripplingly annoying. And so actually having stuff really holds you back when you're trying to travel, whether that's because you're hiking and carrying it, or even if you're just hopping between cities or like going to go to different places. Just the less stuff you have, so much more liberating and enjoyable as an experience. And I also find the same that when you're traveling, the less stuff you try to do, the better, because when you're trying to fit everything in and you've got like 2 different museums to visit before lunch, and then like you're going to see a few different sites in the afternoon, and then like you're going to a new city the next day, it's just overwhelming and exhausting. You don't have time to enjoy it. Whereas actually if you spend like 1 month, maybe 3 months in like a new culture, just staying kind of in the same city, perhaps doing some like tours on the weekend, but you get to like embrace hobbies and engage with the local people and the culture, you actually learn a lot more, I think, and experience something in a much deeper way. And so for traveling, having less and doing less is much more enjoyable experience. But it's the same for life, as in it would be ridiculous to try and have 100 cars for most people because, it's just so many different insurances to work out. There'd always be a car being fixed and stuff. It would just be outrageous. And yet lots of people still have more cars than they might need. And if you live in a city, you might not even need a car. And it's the same with just like the number of tech devices that you have and clothes, other trinkets and random stuff. It's just the more things you have, the more responsibilities you have, and the more problems you have. And thus, if you want to complain less, having less stuff is really nice and a good way of doing it. Again, the more things that you do, the more responsibilities that you have, the more problems that those things will cause you, the more times different things will go wrong within your responsibilities, and the more time that will just be taken off you dealing with stuff, and the less time that you'll have for just like chilling and enjoying the things that you do. There's a famous quote from Tenzin Palmo that says, "One of the advantages of being born in an affluent society is that if one has any intelligence at all, one will realize that having more and more won't solve the problem. Happiness does not lie in possessions or even in relationships. The answer lies within ourselves." If we can't find peace and happiness there within ourselves, it's not going to come from the outside. And so often we just look for new relationships, new things, new tech, new projects, new jobs to try and be the source of our happiness. And yet actually those things just bring us more problems, especially when we haven't fixed the internal needs and problems that we have within ourselves. And so really stripping these things away and working out how to enjoy life with less sets you up for so much more success. And I would recommend absolutely anyone to go traveling for more than a month somewhere where you just carry all of your possessions with you on your back and see a bit of appreciation of what you do and don't really need. And this is actually a very stoic concept of like, actually when things go wrong, what are the important things in your life? Most of the important things are all there, and you can be happy with very little. And so most of the different things that we spend our time stressing out about aren't even the things that we need. And so we're complaining about lots of stuff that isn't even important. A lot of our problems are basically self-inflicted stupidity things that aren't helpful at all. When you think about it, it's very relieving because you're like, actually, happiness isn't so much of a really hard thing that's going to be achieved after like a huge amount of crazy, huge goals that I can accomplish. It's more of a, how can I be a bit more chilled and like just look at the positive sides of a situation, kind of just enjoy wherever I'm at and just appreciate the moment for what it is. Now, that might sound a bit airy-fairy, but take it from me, it certainly helped a shitload. As I said, would really recommend just spending some time living out of a backpack. And if you can, like just go hiking a really fucking long distance, because that made a huge amount of difference to me doing that. Otherwise, just keeping this one short really. And it was to the point, less stuff, less problems, less complaining, more happiness. And that's it. So thank you very much for listening. As always, I'm a podcaster. We have this kind of weird affinity to just ask for people to review our podcasts. So if you feel like doing that, that would be nice. If you don't, it's also okay. Life is to be enjoyed. That does start with enjoying today. Enjoyment is not some future far off thing to work out how to achieve. It's something how to achieve now. So get on it. And whilst you're at it, be kind to someone else too. Thanks for listening.